Chapter 2, Accounting for Business Transactions. Debits and credits. Forget everything you know as associated with the word debit and the word credit. This has nothing to do with a debit card or a credit card. Debit means left and credit means right. Hopefully you watched the silly music video and those lyrics will stay in your mind for the rest of this course. So debit's on the left, credit's on the right. Debit left, credit right. Debits and credits are equal but opposite entries. Debit means left, credit means right. One doesn't mean plus and the other means minus. One doesn't increase all the accounts and the other decrease all the accounts. Neither one is good or bad. Not necessarily plus or minus. Debit is left, credit is right. It just has to do with the entry process. When we enter transactions into a journal, you put a number in the left column and a number on another account in the right column, for example, left and right. So some accounts are increased with a debit, others are increased with a credit. If an account is increased with a debit, that means it's decreased with a credit. So for example, if we have an account that is increased with a debit amount, that means that it will be decreased if we credit the account. Some accounts are increased by a debit. Those are going to be your dividends, expenses, and assets. So if these are increased by a debit, that means that they will be decreased by a credit. Some accounts are increased by a credit. These are liabilities, owner's equity, and revenues. So if these are increased by a credit, that means that they will be decreased by a debit. So it's always important to know whether a debit or a credit increases a certain account. If you know what increases the account, then you will know the opposite one decreases the account. So this is how you will remember which accounts are increased with a debit and which accounts are increased with a credit. So remember, debit means left. So over on the left side, we have the word debit. And we are going to remember the word dealer as a mnemonic to help you remember which accounts are on the left side, on the debit side. So DEA is the first half of dealer. So that means that dividends, expenses, and assets are increased with a debit. The second half of dealer is LOR. That means that liabilities, owner's equity, and revenues are increased with a credit. So this is something that you need to memorize. You'll understand it more. It will start to make more sense as we do some examples, but this is something that you need to memorize to make sure that you always do your journal entries correctly.